All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back to the X-Zone, one and all. I am Rob McConnell, and for the next 2 hours, I'm your host and your guide as together we will cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X-Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, and the X-Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. until midnight, I should say. That's 10 p.m. until midnight. Right here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, and right here on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, streaming around the world on classic1220.ca. X-Zone Nation, my first guest tonight is Dr. Corey Minatani, and we're going to be talking to Dr. Corey about Judeo-Christian Evangelical Theology and Demonology. Now, let me see, I do have some information here about the good doctor. Dr. Corey is a Doctor of Ministry in Christian Studies, a Doctor of Evangelical Theological candidate, and a PhD candidate in Demonology. Studies with a BA degree in philosophy and an MS in psychology. He has published works that have been published in Oran Mor, I believe that's how you say it, a Celtic E-Zine for the New Order of Druids and Grey Matters. And joining me now is Dr. Corey. Dr. Corey, welcome to the X-Zone.
Well, thanks, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit more about yourself, sir.
Well, I got into this strange thing when I was at Christian seminary, and one of the things that we have to do a lot of biblical research and things like that, but I always had this interest in a little bit of the occult, paranormal, and things like that. They just really piqued my interest. But of course, if you don't know how seminary works, they're not going to tell you all the good stuff. Like you can't go in there to one of your professors and say, "Hey, what about ghosts? What about demons? Is there something about shadow people?" These are all subjects that are eschewed and taboo in the theological community. So I had to kind of sit there and venture out, and I, as you said before, I started with my degree in philosophy, and then worked into psychology, and it was very satisfying, but I wanted to learn more. And so I started to work on my ministry degree, and now I'm working on an exegetical theology, which is basically looking at the Christian scripture. And when I did that, I was looking at a lot of the parts of the Old Testament. And if we look at them carefully, there's a lot of crossover between, what the psychic community is doing, the paranormal community, maybe even the esoteric / occult and pagan communities. And there's a lot of good stuff in there. And but one of the things is that some of the translations would pluck things out. So you may or may not know that the King James Version of the Holy Bible, they remove a lot of the demonology type of stuff, because they were, at one time, going after witches and pagans and things like that, because they're trying to establish their dominance in that spiritual realm. And so like the King James Bible, 1611, would actually have a lot of that demonology plucked out. And I thought that was really weird. That's really confusing. Why would they pluck that out? And King James the First himself wrote a book called Demonology, and it was more kind of like parable type stuff, but how people can get involved with demons and devils and bad spirits and the like. And so, but a lot of the modern translations of the Bible, they still leave that out. And so my thought was, hey, well, I better maybe look at the Hebrew version, the Jewish versions of the like the Torah and the Tanakh. And you could, if you look at the English versions of those books, you also see that certain negative stuff has been pulled out, or they will add an apostrophe here, changing the meaning of a word, or this, that, the other, or they'll just gloss over the translation or mistranslate. But then when you look at the Hebrew version, you'll actually see that the words are still in there. Take, for example, there's one demon called Azazel. And in the book of Enoch, he is actually the origin of all sin. So he's the, when they say the devil made me do it, or we can blame it on the devil, that is him. And but when we cross-reference that to all these other Bibles, translation was Azazel has been stripped, and so that name has been stripped or misconstrued. Sometimes if you put an apostrophe in Azazel's name, it'll come up in Hebrew as wilderness. And so some of the English translations, the Protestant translations of the Bible, will put wilderness in there and not leave Azazel's name. Oddly, the Catholic Bibles will actually have that pretty much a straight translation. They'll leave Azazel's name in there. They will let people know that name belongs to a demon, but they won't go any further than that. But at least they're not extracting anything. So, and that is this journey for about 4 years of noticing things that are plucked out of the Bible or they're hidden, and I wanted to know why. And so that's how I got my start in all this, Rob.
Prior to getting into the studies of the Bible and the Torah, prior to getting into the seminary, prior going to the Hollid, schools of learning, had you had any paranormal experience? Had you had an encounter? Anything? Or was this strictly something that you decided to do when you were going to the seminary and looking at what is available and what's not available?
Well, that's a great question. It's been in stages. For example, I was never raised in any kind of religion whatsoever. No paranormal experiences whatsoever. But I did start to learn a little bit about energy, Rob, how to manipulate it in the martial arts. And it's still, even in the martial arts, I mean, they do a lot of breaking and doing, breaking things, this, that, and the other. But there are some esoteric arts that start manipulating energy. And we'll see those in arts, like Qigong or Tai Chi, and they'll kind of, and some of these energies are used in traditional Chinese medicine. And then from there, I kind of worked with, I started working with psionics because it was very similar to martial arts. They would just give you a list of instructions, do this, this, then this, and this is what's going to happen. And so nothing paranormal there either. Then I became a Reiki Master, and my teacher was like, okay, so we're going to introduce you to your Reiki spirit. And I'm like, what's a Reiki spirit? I don't see anything. Like, well, when you get attuned into Reiki, they give you a spirit that stays with you to help you, do your Reiki practice. I'm like, who is they? And they
Exactly.
So they was never, defined. I don't know what a Reiki spirit is, what it does. Is it going to follow me into the bathroom? Is it going to, question what I eat? I don't know. I didn't see anything. And I was asking but apparently my Reiki instructor, her name's Marie Manucheri out of Seattle at the time. She could see these things. She could actually see energy. like say if you waved your hand in the air, she could see like, oh, there's like a little trail of kind of energy or light to what she could see. And she was originally a nurse, and she was working in the terminal wards, and she was able to see this energy a lot more when people were dying. And so that was her paranormal experience. And as I progressed into the Bible study, more and more paranormal stuff started kind of attracting itself towards me. For example, I would see people, friends at some of the libraries that I would deal with, or, have some friends that worked as librarians and library clerks. And usually they're very perky people, very friendly people. And they would tell me that they were fighting with each other, or they were, or they were just feeling drained, or this or that. And then I would do what's called a psychic scan, and then I could see that there was something lodged onto their backside. And so that's kind of where I got started. And even my daughter has run into things where her corgi is becoming just crazed and tracing something in the room at 2:00 in the morning. And I'm like, she's like, I think we have a ghost in the house. I go, well, have you had a ghost in there before? No, but suddenly the corgi's tracking something about 2:00 at night for about 3 nights in a row.
Right.
And so on the first night I came in there, and I'm like, oh wow, the whole house was really weird. And I got this little checklist. I'm like, the only thing might be is probably a shadow person. But I don't have any research on shadow people. So, and that was just like 3 weeks before this broadcast. So now I had to go research about shadow people, because it wasn't covered at the Grey School of Wizardry. It wasn't covered at the Demonology Institute that I'm working at. It wasn't covered at my seminary, obviously. So I had to go do some extra research about shadow people. But when I got to my daughter's home, we did notice that her foyer right in front of the door it had some really negative energy, or had weird energy. It wasn't negative, wasn't positive, but it just felt like it was like a suction. Like when you walk past it was like, oh, because I'm very sensitive to energy or at least a little bit. And so I take my pendulum out, and it's actually probably a portal of some kind. So I don't know. We're still doing some research on it, but I basically just blessed the area, closed it off as per my teaching. But
all right, we're going to have to take a break.
Paranormal.
We're going to have to take a break here, Dr. Corey. When we come back, we're going to be talking more to our guest this hour, Dr. Corey Minatani, and we're talking about the Judeo-Christian theology and demonology this hour here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, streaming classic1220.ca. Don't go away. And welcome back, everyone. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard, and our show is always searching for answers. But we're also demanding the truth. Joining me this hour is Dr. Corey Minatani. And I have to ask you something, Dr. Corey. In the world that we are in right now, do we really need theological books? Do we really need religion? And is it possible that it's religion that is holding us back instead of allowing us to go forward?
Well, that's an excellent question and an excellent perspective. To the first question, do we need religious books? I say yes. Do we need religion? Possibly. Some people do better with religion than without. I don't think it's for everyone.
Yeah.
But we probably all know, we can all think of somebody that probably religion helped save their life once in a while. We're not talking like a Christian saving, but we're just like, maybe they drank too much and they would started going to religion, going to church or maybe a pagan practice, and they snapped out of it. They just kind of, their perspective changed, their paradigms shifts a little bit, and that's enough to possibly save their life or save their marriage, or maybe they have kids and they're not there for them, and a religion helps them focus on what's really important.
Is it possible that religion is nothing else but a placebo effect? That you can actually do what you're doing without the help of religion if you just put your mind to it?
Well, yeah, I think there is. I don't know if it's all that, but I know it. Especially as a psychological point, I would say it's about 50%.
Okay.
The other 50% is, you might say, well, you have a leap of faith, or you have some skills and stuff like that. I've seen some weird stuff. Just laying on of hands, healing. I've worked with some Pentecostal folks, and they would, pray for healing in the name of Jesus, and try to get the Holy Spirit to do the healing. And I've seen some really cool stuff being healed. We're talking like carpal tunnel. Sometimes it was just minor, like headaches. I've seen with the Native American tribe. I worked with the Muckleshoot for a little bit, and they would go do their sweat lodges and attract entities in the mountain. They would go in their sweat lodge and come running out. I'm like, "What'd you say? Well, what's spooking you?" And they're like, "Something's watching me." So it kind of sometimes the religion can buckle people down, and then say in the case of the Native Americans, they were just learning about their native culture and their history and things like that, and it opened their eyes up to a whole new world. They were very secular and worldly, and the whole idea of spirits, spirit animals, and things like that really just spooked them on one level. But it was like, oh, maybe the elders were saying something of the truth. So, but for myself, the old textbooks or the old religious books are keys for someone like me that has a lot of different training, like in martial arts and psychology and philosophy and religion, and other healing modalities, that I can say, oh, well, this stuff, like in the Old Testament, a lot of this stuff that I practiced, on my own is actually embedded in the Bible or in the Old Testament.
But I often ask, if we had the knowledge that we have today with all the sciences, and we had access to the vast information that we have available on the internet, how different would the Bible have been written if the events that were so spectacular to the ancients happened today?
Yeah, well, that's also a good point. With everything, the level of intensity for entertainment and excitement and attention, if we look at the normal day-to-day news, a lot of the news media, they have to really hype up the news or really blow it out of proportion. It seems, from my perspective anyway, just to get the attention, and the attention nowadays for many people is encapsulated in a TikTok video. What is that, 30 to 60 seconds sometimes, and they'll go through maybe 30 of those, in a day or whatever. But so it might not be a big thing. People are less impressed, or especially nowadays, we have so many stage magicians and tricksters and people trying to scam us all the time, that people would take a skeptical side, which is totally healthy. You don't want to sit there and dive deep into this, with full faith and naivety, so you gotta baby step it in there, and it may not be right for everybody. People that are very scientific minded in the world, their purpose in the world is to do science. People like myself, I couldn't figure out science. That was some of my worst classes. That's why I kind of end up getting a degree in philosophy, because I could think really large thoughts, but trying to do accounting or things like that I was very horrible. Language skills, my Spanish teacher promised to give me a D minus in Spanish 101 if I promised never to take 102. So I think people just kind of naturally fall into these things based on their attributes. But then again, there's some other things that, but I get back to your question though.
Yeah.
They may not be very impressed. They might think it's a trick, which is okay.
Where did you earn your degree in philosophy and your degree in psychology from?
My degree in philosophy was over at Central Washington University. It's over a little town here in Washington called Ellensburg, Washington. And then my psychology degree was actually online because I had 4 kids. And I was working full time, and that was the only way I could do a degree program at that time. And so it was online with Capella University.
The established religions and philosophies are noting that a great number of people are leaving their flock and going into the alternative religious philosophies and New Age movement societies, including Wicca, just to mention one. How do you see this helping those who are watching the onslaught of people leaving to question if, in fact, what they have been taught to believe in is the truth?
Well, if we're thinking about an all-powerful being, let's call it God.
Okay.
And he's going to get you in some kind of thought process, whether it's the Ancient Aliens show, whether it's going to be Santa Claus, or people divert to Wicca. From my hometown, we have some people that are getting into Norse religion because they might be disenfranchised from normal religions, or it's not lively enough, or they don't identify with it anymore. And I think that's the key. There's a lot of religions, when they first started off, they were on fire because they were making a difference in people's lives, and it wasn't about the money and how many people you had in the seats. You had a lot more quality. People could actually sit and talk with the spiritual leader and get some inside things. And I think when people are moving away from organized religion into these offshoots, let's call them offshoot philosophies and religions, it's because that portion of that personal connection, that personal mentorship, that identification of the little things you do for that offshoot is being recognized for the most part. I mean, if we go to a mega church, like you might see on TV, these televangelists, they've got 10,000 people in this seat. You're definitely feeling like you're part of the group, but do you feel like your efforts will be even remotely recognized by the pastor? Probably not, right? You're just one of the many. You're just like a serial number,
It seems that religion these days is just like any other company. After the almighty dollar, in order to show profits. And I just find it very disillusioning when the entire religious philosophy, the religious organizations such as Christianity, Catholicism, just kind of look at you as a member of their corporation. You have in my opinion, you have the Pope as the CEO. Then you have the deacons and the cardinals as the board of directors. And then you've got John Q. Public, who goes to church hoping to lead a better life and is paying. The collection pot comes around and it's either what they have in their pocket or their promised tithing. I think that it's time that we as a society take a good look at religion. And now we're seeing in the paranormal, there's a lot of people who are basing what they're doing on religion. For example, after we come back from this break, we're going to be talking about demons and what are demons, where did they come from, and much more. So please stand by, Dr. Corey at X-Zone Nation. This is the X-Zone. Dr. Corey Minatani is our special guest, and he is in Seattle, Washington. Unfortunately, we don't have a contact information for him, but he said that we can give we don't have a website address for him, but we can give out his email address, and it is cminatani21@gmail.com. The X-Zone, Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight. Where? Right here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. And we're coming to you right now on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, streaming around the world on classic1220.ca. Whatever you do, don't go away, because we'll be back after the short break.
She was born in a fun house. She grew up on a wild mouse, driving bumper car around the ground, and a big rig from town to town. She sleeps on a roller coaster. She looks like a girly poster. She can go.
If I had $1 million,
If I had $1 million,
well, I'd buy you a house.
I would buy you a house.
And if I had $1 million,
If I had $1 million,
buy you furniture for your house.
maybe a nice Chesterfield or an ottoman.
And if I had $1 million,
And welcome back, everyone. By the way, if my music director is listening, there's my CanCon for this hour. The first song we did was She's an Amusement Park by Band from Heaven in Hamilton, Ontario. And this song by the Bare Naked Ladies, If I Had $1 Million. So there we are, Peter. Two Canadian songs for CanCon. There we go. What, in your opinion, is a negative entity, and where did they come from?
Well, a negative entity is the opposite of what we are. If we're living, we're having a heartbeat. We have some sort of a positive energy output, and a negative entity is something that is like a magnet. Drawn. It's polar opposites that connect. It's attracted to our life energy. So a negative energy, was. There's a whole lot of classifications which we can get into, but they're everywhere. They're kind of behind the scenes, as you will, just like ghosts or other kinds of paranormal phenomenon. But they're everywhere. They're just like germs and viruses around the world. They're everywhere. It's part of an ecosystem that we live in. Many people can be, they're very sensitive to that, can see the entities. Some cannot. So the less sensitive you are, the less you have to worry about them. But it does happen to these negative entities do stick to people, whether they like it or not.
Mm-hmm. Once again, I'm going to play the devil's advocate here. is how do
Okay.
we know that these negative entities are in fact real and just not figments of certain people's imagination?
Well, that's true. Most of the clients, just this year alone, I would do. Normally, I'd have my Reiki practice, and people would be like, I'm feeling bad, and feel depressed, or I'm angry, or whatever. And then I could just hit them with some Reiki, and that usually mostly works. But for some of these people, and like I said, I just fell into this by accident. I would just do a scan on them. I would just kind of imagine like a door screen, going down across their body, and just to see if I can remove any negative energy. Because some people, they just pick up. There's lots of little negative energy or perverse energy running around. Like say if you go to a seedy bar, you're gonna pick up a little bit of negative energy because it's not a good place. There's a lot of stuff going on in there, and you might bring it in your home. So there's that little bit of negative energy, that kind of thing. But these people, when I would do the scan, I'd scan their front, just like a doctor, like you might do an MRI or whatever. These people had no idea there was any negative entity on them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, I'd scan the front, nothing. Then I'd scan the back, and it would stop. And then it took me a couple of weeks to figure out what the heck was going on. And then I did, of course, I see what's going on. There's something stuck to their back, and I had to do more, some research on that. And a lot of the psychic community, they have, books on psychic, attacks, psychic self-defense books, things like that. And in one book, specifically, Robert Bruce, he had an actual drawing of an entity that a negative entity just attached to somebody's back chakras. And then I got the idea like, oh, well, maybe that's what that is. And so then I started developing techniques with my practice, being able to pull these people off and then put them in like little spirit traps. So it was kind of weird. So, but most of the folks, they don't know what it is. They just know their experience. I feel bad, and there's no reason why. Like most of my clients are bubbly people.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like these very perky people, morning people, and then all of a sudden they're just oddly bad. So I scan them, and I found that they had some on there. And then the weird thing, and I didn't believe in it either. I was just kind of like, well, it could be anything. What is it? But when I started pulling it off, psychically, and you got to put it in a bottle or trap it somehow. After weeks, the entity just stays in there, and it's trying to move, and you can feel the energy radiating out of the containment container. So. Yeah, but most of my clients, when I do that, they don't know, they don't see it. They just know they feel better. So, like I say, I'll start at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then I'll say, okay, 9:15, whatever it was on your back, I pulled it off, and they're like, oh yeah, because like about 9:14, I was starting to feel okay. I got my energy back, or this or that. So, but it's run the gamut. Some of it was just anger. Some of it was just depression. One guy had diarrhea, and then as soon as I started plucking it off, he stopped. I mean, he had diarrhea for like a week straight, and then after I plucked him off, no more diarrhea. So I don't know. It's sort of really strange phenomenon.
Let me ask you this: if a person is in a positive state of mind, and he goes into a bar, and I don't believe that all bars are bad, so he goes into a bar that might be considered seedy, okay?
Mm-hmm.
He sits down, has a couple of brewskis before he goes home. He's had a hell of a day at the office.
Sure.
Then he leaves. How would somebody who's having a positive day, who's got so much going for him, he's got the job of his life, the job that he's dreamt of, why would he be attacked by a so-called negative entity?
Well, in the person that you're characterizing in this scenario probably wouldn't. These people that have like the New Age community or the esoteric community, metaphysics community, whatever you want to call them, they call that a person that has a good life. They're doing things. They're just going in for a couple brewskis, as you said.
Yeah.
They have what's called a high vibration. Now, like I don't use that term, but they're good people, just like you say. Like you can look across and like, hey Joe, how's it going?
Yeah.
And he's a hard worker and stuff like that. But and maybe he comes into the bar once a week, no big deal, right? But let's say that same Joe, who's always a nice guy, never starts a fight, whatever, but he goes in and has his couple of beers. Some guy talks about something bad about American politics, or maybe disrespected the Toronto Blue Jays, and he's like, hey, what do you think you're doing? And he slugs the guy, and this, that. So, and you might say, hey, something's wrong with Joe. He never starts a fight. He never gets into these conversations. Or something going on. Maybe he had a bad day at work, and that's how it goes. But normally, if they're a high vibration type of person, they're not going to run into that. But if it's a continual thing, and you see that people with that maybe do drugs and stuff like that, so it starts small, and then okay, Joe's going to the bar now 2 or 3 times a week, maybe 4. Now he's not coming home at night, to go visit the wife. Wife's got stuff on the table waiting for him, and he didn't show up. He hasn't called, whatever. Talking to women.
Yeah, I get.
Yeah.
I get your drift, but what I'm trying to establish is whether or not the negative entity is self-induced in all these cases. And you were telling us about people go to see you, and you do a scan, and you notice something is negative in them, and you are able to eradicate whatever the negative feeling is.
Yeah.
Okay, now, how do we know that just by them going to see you and talking to you and them believing that you believe that you can help them is just a matter of mind over matter? That just by being with somebody who believes them, is the cure. And once again, I look at the placebo effect.
Right.
How do you know the difference between something that is generated from within your client compared to an actual physical, demonic, or evil entity?
Yeah, well, there's certain levels of entities. Let's call them. So, like when we talk about the demonic entity, that's usually reserved for somebody that's got some serious problems. We're talking, and then there's other entities that are not demonic, but they do drain your energy. Let's say. For any number of reasons. So this could manifest in nightmares. Like there's some entities that feed off of fear for whatever reason. So they scare the bejesus out of you while you're actually give you a nightmare. Or we had one client that would just, she was a bubbly person, never had any voices, in her brain, but she would be told to do certain things. So she had to actually manually in her mind think of another positive thought to counter this really strange thought that's coming into your head. So, but I always try to sit there. I never sit there and, beyond the scan, I just say, yeah, there's something going on. Maybe, what have you been doing this week that's been different? Oh, sometimes I'm doing tarot, I'm doing this. Now maybe try not doing that this week. And then we'll see what happens. So I always try to get their vibration to, up a little bit without my having to pluck anything off, without any kind of other interaction, because I can normally see that there's already some kind of outward manifestation, something's going on with them, but I'm not always inclined to sit there and, hey, you got some kind of demon or something on you, but because those are two different things. Demons will actually have to go through 3 different kinds of stages: infestation, oppression, and then finally possession.
All right, let's
Some of
talk
these
about
negative entities-
let's talk about demons on the other side of this break.
Okay.
All right, Exonation, Dr. Corey Minatani is our guest. We're talking this hour about Judeo-Christian theology and demonology, and we're trying to get a better grasp on whether or not it is real because you believe it's real, or if it in fact is real because it is real. I don't understand how I could say that any other way. So we'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. And you're listening to us on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, streaming on classic1220.ca. We'll be back on the other side of this very short break. Don't go away.
If I had $1 million, if I had
A new day, a new day. I was waiting for so long for a miracle to come. Everyone told me to be strong. Hold on and don't shed a tear. Through the darkness and good times, I knew I'd make it through. And the world thought I had it all, but I was waiting for you.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. And I must tell you about something that I'm going to find very interesting happening next week. Next week, as many of you know, is the first town hall meeting and debate between current President Joe Biden and past President Donald Trump. And last night I had on the show Stephen Bassett, and we were talking about the significance of the candidates talking about the UFO experience. Now, Steve was telling me, or trying to explain to me, how that if President Biden said anything about the UFO UAP scenario pertaining to disclosure, that it would be a blow for President Biden. And it would be something that President Trump would pick up very fast on and do his best to discredit the entire UFO scenario. Something that was brought up last night, and I had never heard this before, is that now members of the UFO community are claiming that these alleged visitors, who they claim to have been here for hundreds, if not thousands of years, are worried about the nuclear state of our countries. How the world is just a heartbeat away from nuclear annihilation. So it seems that the UFO community is looking for more believers, and now they're using, well, first of all, after MUFON, for example, they were using the New Age connection. Other people are using the Bigfoot connection. And now it seems that the nuclear threat is now becoming part of the UFO community. It's going to be an interesting topic, interesting conversation, and Kevin Randall and I will be having a special show that night to discuss what happened, if anything in fact did happen, and how it's going to play out in what many believe is the UFO exposure that will be brought forward within weeks, if not months. Now, these are the same people who have been telling us this for years. I've heard so many people say, well, disclosure is just around the corner, Rob. You know, you're going to see 2-3 months from now that disclosure will have happened. We will have disclosure brought to the public by President, whoever the president is at that time. Could be Biden or whoever wins on the other side. I've been hearing this story for 30 years now. So it's kind of hard to put any faith in anything anymore when it comes to ufology, because they're all over the board. So please bear with us when we have our show on Thursday and we discuss the findings of the debate itself. We won't go into any other aspect of the debate except the UFO phenomenon. Dr. Corey, what's your stand on UFOs?
I like them. I don't know anything about them. I haven't been visited by any aliens, but I'm open to the possibility.
Right.
But yeah, I haven't had any UFO encounters. But I have my father, for example, is very into. Well, he's not really into UFOs, but he believes that humans were actually planted here on the earth. So that's his kind of religion, because he's very non-religious, organized religion, anti-organized religion. But he believes for years, as long as I've known him, all about this, aliens dropping us off and breeding us to be on the earth. So, and then when the ancient aliens show up, he's like, see, I told you. so that's how our family kind of deals with it. But we'll do this wait and see thing.
All right,
I'm excited.
Let's get back to how do you get a demon or a entity off of a person? You said that you do the scan, you could see it on their back, and you you take it off. How do you do that?
Well, there's a lot of different ways. Like say the religious community will use exorcism. Sometimes the pagan community will use something called a banishment. The psychic community, they can get their mind to kind of stretch out a little bit, kind of like a little arm, and you just start tugging on it. And that has correspondence with old shamanic type of techniques when people had something on their body in their auric field or something like that. They would do a similar technique. They would go into the spirit world like a dream and do the same thing. They would just actually, watch their dream body grab this entity and pull it off the person that they're trying to help. And so it's a very similar thing. I do a lot of this stuff remotely, so I'll just imagine my client there, spin them around, and just spin the visualization of their body, and then start pulling with my hand or my mind this entity and try to pluck it off. And usually, once you pluck it off, it's like a tick. It's not going to go. It doesn't like run and try to jump back on the back. So it's kind of weird. But this negative entity is almost like a leech. It really, which is a little bit different than a demon. Demons are, come in two classifications. They have kind of a formerly human demon, which I classify as a daemon. It's kind of like the kind of a Greek spin on it. And then there's actually the demon. Those are the fallen angels from the Book of Enoch. And so, we talk about power. The demons that are actually the fallen angels are probably the more powerful ones because they're beings of light. And then the people that are daemons, they're demon-like, demonic entities, but they're not as strong as obviously as a fallen angel would be because they were originally created.
Sure. Now you're talking about the Book of Enoch, which is part of the Bible. Right. But what about the religions that are around the world who do not subscribe to the Bible? The Bible is not part of their belief. How do they deal with these entities? Or is it just those who read the Bible and who believe in the Bible that are being infested by these entities that are mentioned in the Book of Enoch?
Well, no, yeah. It seems like the angels specifically mentioned in the Book of Enoch do not, they're in the Middle East, they're in the European, Western nations, but like say that the Chinese, they've had Taoist magicians working, they have records going back 3,000, 4,000 years, pulling demons off the Native Americans from way back in their oral history. They have techniques doing that. So whatever these beings are, these negative entities,
right.
They've been around in different, very similar forms all around the world. But there does seem to be some kind of hierarchy, and those are usually attached to religion. We'll see these in India. We'll see these negative entities in Japan, India, North and South America, all over the place. Ukraine.
Right. So they're all over the place. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Why doesn't the Creator just get rid of them? Why do we humans have to suffer this if our Creator, who apparently is all-knowing and all-being, why doesn't he just say, hey, listen, whether you're a demon or whether you're an entity, get lost. These are my children. I'm not going to tolerate this any longer. You're banished.
Yeah.
Bang.
Well, it seems to be whatever religion that people prescribe to or have faith or begin to have some faith, right? Let's say somebody's being harassed by a demon, but they don't believe in that nonsense, blah, 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 blah. But they eventually break down because they're kind of on this oppression stage of being possessed by a demon. And so they're at their wits' end. So even if they're not Catholic, they might go to a Catholic priest and say, hey, I need some help. But it seems like because of the free will and people can do whatever they want, it seems like God's stepping back, kind of a laissez-faire, a hands-off approach, and waiting until the people that are suffering, as you say, go out and ask for the help. He's not going to sit there and seemingly just remove it just to remove it. People are going to have to go there and suffer enough to where they're like, all right, I've had enough, and maybe get one of these holy people to help. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't, but that's the key. That's one of the keys, as far as I know. And I've seen it work with the pagan community. You might have a Wiccan priest, and the entity goes away. You might have a psychic person or a shaman, Native American shaman. Zip, the kahunas in Hawaii, same thing. You finally break down and go see the kahuna, boop, it goes away. So I think there's this little bit that you have to kind of give a tip of the hat or a handshake. You have to kind of reach out a little bit. It's that reaching out which enables some of these folks to get some relief. And I think that's the big key.
Wouldn't it be more beneficial for a person who believes they are suffering from any physical or any mental cause that is causing them to feel that they need help? Wouldn't it be better for them to go to see a trained medical professional?
Absolutely. However, for example, like if you go over there and say, well, I'm hearing voices. Well, the psychiatrists and the psychologists, depending on which way you go, they will fill you full of drugs. So they'll try to medicate the problem. Some of my clients have been heavily medicated, and they're still having the problems. They're like, okay, well, my doctor said to take this, to reduce the schizophrenia or the voices, but but it's still going on.
Hey,
and then I have to ask, well, what are the voices saying?
Corey, we've run out of time for tonight. I want to thank you very much for joining us. And Exo Nation, if you'd like to contact Dr. Corey, his email address is cminatani21@gmail.com. I'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue with hour number 2 of the X Zone tonight. And the X Zone is here Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight. And if you'd like to send us a question, if you'd like to propose a guest for the show, my email address is xzone@classic1220.ca. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
For a miracle to come, everyone told